Which guys come to mind, like playing day in, day out for how many years? You see some of the best in the world. I mean, you're already a top 60 goalie as is, but are there any guys that come to mind where you're just overwhelmingly impressed by them?
Um, yeah, I mean, obviously Roberto to me was kind of like I think he changed my career in a good way without him even knowing it. I think I came in from Manitoba and I had some great mentors down there, Drew McIntyre. Um, some of the other guys I worked with and played with Scott Arniel, our coach, Mike Keane, Keener, like he taught me so much in the American League about how to be a pro and how to be an adult and just sort of, hey, suck it up and just, you're a pro now. You got to do certain things. So those guys really helped me in the minors. But then when I got to Vancouver, it's a different level. It's a different level of scrutiny, different level of play. And I think for me, thinking I was ready, and I felt I was, and I get on the ice with him, and he's out there before me. He's doing drills. He's working on this. He's competing on every single puck. He's swearing up and down the ice if he gets scored on. Like he's a competitive son of a bitch. And I was like, oh, that's what like great goalies look like at this level. So I think even just to observe him and watch him and practice with him for that first half of that season, it ramped my game up. I was like, okay, this is the level I need to get to if I'm going to compete with this guy. Because one of my biggest fears was like, and I felt this when I had been called up in the years prior that there was Roberto, and I didn't want to be the guy that came in and they're like, oh, you're not Roberto. Like, we don't feel secure and safe with you back there because we have one of the greatest goalies of all time in net. So I like honestly that fear motivated me to try to be as good as I could as him to make sure there wasn't like some significant drop off between him and me when I did play. And I think the work ethic, the mentality, the competitiveness, not even the talent, let alone that. It was just that helped me sort of get to that next level. And yeah, I mean, he's the one that probably stands out the most. I've had some other great, I mean, recently, even in the island, working with Ilya Sorokin and Varley. Varley was one of my peers, Semyon Varlamov. We were compared a lot. I actually based the contract negotiator I was talking about. He was the comparable we were looking at because he had just re-signed with Colorado. So it was fun working with those two because Ilya is just, a maniac. He works so hard. He cares so much. And Varley's just, he's been around forever and he's just so technical. You see him in the playoffs now. He's still doing it at 35, 36. Just a really fun guy, but again, works his butt off at age 35, 36 to be in the shape he is. Jersey was a little different. I had Marty for a year, so that was a bit of a unique experience. It was awesome playing with Marty, just again, to be around him and watch him. I probably didn't learn quite as much from him just because he had such a unique style and he was 42, so he's just at a different point of his career. And then, we had, once I became a starting goalie, we ran through a lot of backups. All great guys, Keith Kincaid, Scott Clemenson, Jan Denis, just guys like that, Mackenzie Blackwood. So, I always had great relationships, but it kind of flipped at that point, right? I sort of became the mentor to the mentee versus the other way around. So again, as I mentioned, you're the hunted, so you're trying to keep your job and prove that you belong, but you're also trying to teach these guys and help them come along in their careers while still making sure that you're doing what you need to do. So, again, I was pretty lucky to have good goaltending partners in my career.
I've always found like no matter what goalie partner you have, you end up absorbing some of the tendencies that they have just from seeing it day in, day out. I mean, you see them on the ice how many times over how many seasons, how many years. Was there anything specific that you absorbed from like a Varley or from a Sorokin or from a Lou?
Yeah, I mean, Roberto, I morning skated every day because he did. He always morning skated. Even though he played 60, 65 games, he always went on the ice in the morning. And so I felt like if I didn't morning skate, I wasn't going to play well. Like I had to see shots in the morning. And then finally, when I got to Jersey years later and was the guy, there was one year I played 69 games. Finally, Chris Terreri, my goalie coach, had to be like, hey, man, you don't have to skate. We played yesterday. Like, you really don't have to skate. I'm like, no, 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 I do. I do. Like, I have to skate. And he's like, trust me, don't go on the ice because it takes you an hour to warm up, stretch, get ready, put your gear on. You go on the ice for 12 minutes and you get off. Like save yourself the energy of doing all that and whatever. And finally I did, and I was like, oh, I played all right. And I was like, oh, I guess I don't have to skate every day, every morning. So that took a little while from Roberto to like, get out of my mind that I had to do that. Mostly just like a little equipment things too. There's some warm up drills, some skating drills I picked up from guys along the way, but like I wore these elbow kind of soft, squishy elbow heel pads that I stole from Roberto because I saw him doing it. I was like, oh, I'm going to try that. And I did that up until like the end of my career. Skates, I couldn't get out of the old cowling skates. Like I finally just recently got into those ski boot, the Bauer Connect with I got into those like the last year of my career. But prior to that, I had to wear those like big cowling skates that the blades wouldn't come out of because I just was so used to them. I couldn't go to 3 millimeter steels because it felt like I was on stilts. Like I had to have the 4 millimeter width, which again, you say it's a millimeter, but still 25, 30% of, more width. So just little habits, you're getting old when they stop making your equipment. Like I called Vaughn and they're like, man, we don't do the shin cradle anymore. Like you and Quickie are the only two guys who still use that. Like, can you get in some of the new stuff? I'm like, well, you're making it for Quickie? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, can you make it for me? And they're like, fine. Some poor bastards like still sewing in shin cradles for me and quickie. So just little things like that. You just realize the games you gotta get lighter and faster as you get older. And I tried to adopt that as much as I could, but there are just certain things you have a hard time habits kicking.
Hey, more hockey content. It's might be old, it might be new, it might be a full episode, it might be a half episode, but you can click these boxes because who doesn't like clicking boxes?